Welcome to the Universal Orlando Resort. Universal is working feverishly on their next best theme park, Universal Epic Universe, slated to open in 2025. I wanted to know more, so I brought in industry insider and the absolute best in the business. Alicia Stella is here to talk about the park with us. This is Shark Stop. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Theme Park Shark podcast. Minion Blast is open, Alicia.
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, it's soft opened.
Yeah, soft open. I think, yeah, that's definitely the more technical and appropriate thing to say. But it's at a point where you've been inside. You've seen it.
I did. I wrote it twice at this point when we're recording. I went back for another day, and they didn't open for soft opens until like 4, and I left right before that. So I'm looking forward to trying it some more tomorrow. They definitely have some kinks to work out on the latency of the screens versus the blasters, but
sure,
it is okay. First of all, it's way bigger inside than I was expecting. I'm going through, I'm expecting this tiny cramped ride thing, but I'm looking at these gigantic tall screens and I'm like, this is like being inside a gigantic video game. And I think kids are going to like that.
Was there any space in there particularly used that wasn't used in during the Shrek run in that building, or how exactly does that break
I think
out?
The main ride, which is like a conveyor belt you stand on, goes through mostly one of the Shrek theaters. But I think it also took over the backstage space behind the screen in the Shrek theater. So it is longer so it did go over that. And what used to be like team member and backstage areas got taken over by the ride. But it is still like a third of the building. And there's still a huge section. Another Shrek theater is reserved for Halloween Horror Nights houses. And one of the Shrek pre-shows is now the gift shop. And one of the Shrek pre-shows is now an indoor queue, which is the coolest part of the building for me. It's really well decorated and it has some fun Easter eggs and stuff. So I like the indoor part of the queue, but it is kind of tiny.
What were some of your favorite Easter eggs that you immediately already picked out on your first 3 ride-throughs?
And because I was like one of the first people in line for when it first started soft opening, I was only in the indoor queue area very briefly, but there's a lost and found area, although it's renamed Lost and Stolen, and it had a bunch of Shrek props in it.
Oh, that's cool.
So like leftover from
yeah.
Shrek. So I'm going to be hopefully going back tomorrow and just like going over with a fine-tooth comb every inch of that little queue area.
That's cool. I would have been geeking out over that for sure if I was in there and saw that. So now I am definitely excited to get out there and see it. I mean, I have been the whole point, but just knowing there's also little nods like that in the queue, that's super cool.
Yeah. I think the biggest complaint right now seems to be people don't know what you're supposed to blast or what you're supposed to shoot at during this attraction. And I think they're working on a way to message it, because a lot of the queue video, as you get closer to the actual attraction, is telling you how to sync it to your phone, which hasn't started yet. It should start at the end of this month. And nothing's really telling you what you're supposed to shoot at. And that's because it's a kind of attraction where everything is shootable. Like, not 2 seconds into this attraction, I saw minions running back and forth on the screen, and I'm like, can I shoot a minion? And I don't think I shot a minion, but I shot a crate right next to a minion, which exploded, and the minion caught fire and ran around screaming. And I was like, I love this ride. I got 650,000 for my score the first time. The upper limit is like 99,999,999. So there's a long ways to go before we max this one out. Like, I swear, I think, but that's based on the little screen on your blaster and how many digits you can have, just like MIB. Yeah, except instead of 9999999, it's 9999999.
That's what I was just about to say. It puts Men in Black to shame in that sense. That's quite a score, 99 million.
Mm-hmm. But I know several people that got over 1 million already, and I got to 650 on my first time, and that's mostly shooting minions because I was there to shoot minions.
Well, we'll be looking for your how to max out 99 million video soon.
Yeah, but it's fun, and the fact that I actually can't wait to go do it again is a good testament, like to an interesting ride. I did Shrek 4D once in 5 years, and this I probably will continue to do. And once it integrates with the app, I'm a very competitive person, so I think it'll be fun.
I'll ask you the burning question then. Things settle down, maybe it's a year or two from now. You're going, let's say, 10 visits. How many times are you going on this?
Probably 5.
5 of those 10?
Yeah, if it's less than an hour, I'll wait for it.
Wow, that's pretty good. I mean, especially if you're saying like less than an hour, because for me, my cutoff at this point, just how often I go, I try not to go anything honestly above like 30 minutes, even for rides I really like. But yeah, I think that's pretty good praise for something that kind of like you said, it was just
once you add an interactive element to something, it makes it a little more interesting. It makes it more rewritable. I understand people's complaints like that this isn't like a grand dark ride or anything, but at the same time, like parks need C-ticket rides, and
right.
I will do this more than a show that never changes.
Well, I mean, if we all had it our way, every ride would be some insane e-ticket, right? So
yes.
That's why they're called e-tickets. Like some are e-tickets and some aren't, right? So
right.
Let me be the first to congratulate you too. I mean, you nailed this ride system pretty early. I think from day one, the first time we ever spoke about this ride, you pretty much called exactly what it is. So no real surprises going into it.
Yeah, I think people are surprised that there's no like animatronics or physical characters or things, but I never said there would be.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I know people would hope that there would be. There is actually kind of a lot of physical props. I was hoping for projection mapping on physical things, but the screens are very flat screens. And I think that's just the way that the ride mechanics work. You kind of need it to be. But there are physical props that have screens on them too. Like there's these portraits in one of the rooms that looks like a mansion. And you can shoot the paintings and then they like rip away and there's hidden loot crates behind them. And I like the idea that like this physical prop is also a screen so that you can interact with things that aren't just the big giant screen. So there's other stuff around the room you can shoot at. So it's interesting the way that it played out. And it's, again, in real life, as compared to like my rumors and stuff, it's much bigger than you would think.
Yeah. I want to talk about those blasters too, which also seem to be much bigger than I thought. I mean, we've seen the concept art and like just initial promo images for those blasters with people holding it. But in person, when I'm seeing people holding these things, they look big.
Well,
like it looks like a substantial thing you're holding. It's not the...
You have to use two hands. There's two triggers. There's like a grenade launcher in the front because you pick up random things, which by the way, banana was my favorite because you can actually tell it's coming from you. Like banana.
Nice.
If you look at the little screen, it tells you how many you have left. And I'm like, I have 9 bananas left. All right. But the normal trigger is down like on the lower end of the blaster. So it is a very much two-handed thing. And everyone keeps talking about how heavy it is. And I guess because everyone warned me how heavy it was, when I picked it up, I'm like, that's not that heavy. I mean, it's heavier than the MIB blaster, which weighs nothing, but it's also not tethered to anything. So you get to really hold it, and I found if you hold it against like your chest, against your body, you have more control over it. But I think it's fine. Most kids would probably be able to like hold it on their own. They say they're working on something as a replacement for very small children. But I think any kid who is really good at video games and is old enough for video games will be able to hold it just fine.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Men in Black too, because I think anybody that's used to a theme park shooter, they're probably going to be used to something significantly smaller, whether it is Men in Black or even something like Buzz Lightyear, both kind of having a smaller form factor in terms of the actual shooter. So this almost feels like, almost looks like a laser tag type shooter, like something you would get at like a laser tag place. Yeah,
and actually... That's closer to the weight of it, maybe even less than some laser tag places I've been to. People were comparing it to the Wiimote. There was a Wii game thing where you stuck it into the thing and it has 2 hands. I remember the Super Scope 6 on Super NES, like the 2-handed video game blasters. It's more like that and less like...
Let me ask you this too. When you're shooting and you're looking at things happening in real time on the screen, it looks like there's, at a time... just based upon images that are out and stuff, that there's maybe 10, 15, 20 people in the same room at a time. You can tell me if it's less or more. Does it become hard to tell what you're actually shooting at versus somebody else, or does it get kind of confusing in that respect? Like I look at the images and I'm like, man, it would be super cool if there was actually like a streamlined laser all the way to the screen if they could have pulled that off somehow, but right? Like,
yeah. But because you're crisscrossing across the pathway with other people standing there, we'd probably be blinding everyone with laser dots. There is a cursor on the screen so you can see which one is you. Someone told me...
Is it obvious?
No, it is obvious if you were like only 5 people in a room, but because it's like 12 to 15 people in a space at a time, It's like a lot of cursors moving around. Someone said, look at your blaster as it synchronizes with the system right before you start the ride, and the bubble on top will turn a color. It turns green to say that it's synchronized, and then it'll turn a color on the screen. That color will be your cursor color the whole time. So if you know what your cursor color is, you know where to look on the screen for you. I find if you just like pull your cursor over to the corner of the screen, no one else is doing that. So you can kind of see, oh, I'm green. And then the whole rest of the time, you know what
Do you think this ride could have benefited somehow spacing the dots even further out to make it so there's less people in each room? I know that would significantly hurt capacity, but what do you think?
I think it's entirely possible that may happen. Over the course of the next 2 weeks before we get like an official announcement on opening day, they are going to tweak. The dots have already changed colors, supposedly.
Oh, wow.
They went from the same color for all the dots to 2 different colors. So you could say, go to orange, go to purple, go to orange. So they have left and right different colors. I think that's smart, but it's also because they're stickers. It's also possible that they could space them out more. Yes, you'll lose capacity. Some people have said that's estimated at about 1,200 an hour. I think that's the average, like the actual numbers they can get. I think with the spacing of the dots they have now, it's closer to 1,400 total, like theoretical. So if they bring it down to 1,000, I think it would be more comfortable. I am worried that like I was like reaching over. I'm tall enough that I can reach over people's heads when I turn left and right.
Sure.
I worry that like kids especially who are shorter are going to be hitting people in the back of the knee as they turn left to right. So I would 2 inches more on each dot would do some wonders, I think.
I mean, if you're that compact and crammed too, wouldn't kids have, I mean, if they're very small, wouldn't they have blocked, field of views even, and would it be hard for them to shoot at things because they're kind of shooting through people, or not necessarily?
And everything seems to be very left or right of the path most of the time.
Okay.
And they have glass walls for the railing, so kids can shoot through the glass. And I think they in some respects, kids have a better angle for some things, and adults have a better angle for others. Like adults can go over heads by lifting their arms up, and kids can go under arms by shooting from where they are. If they're right at like against the glass, they probably can start shooting things in the next room before we even get there. So it's pretty fair. It evens out. I just think a little bit more room might, and also like I had to watch. I got off my dot and it stopped shooting when you get off your dot, and I didn't notice. And I was like, "Why is my gun not working?" And I looked down and I'm not on my dot, and I'm like, me of all people, considering
that's wild that it's all linked up like that.
I theorized that there would be dots. I theorized. Yeah. I did not have inside information. Ian asked me on my podcast, what's going to keep people from walking forward? And I'm like, maybe there'll be a dot and you won't earn any points if you don't stand on your dot. The fact that this whole thing hinges on that actually being true blows my mind because I didn't have inside information on it. As I'm boarding this ride for the first time, a team member is telling everyone, remember to stay on your spot or you won't earn any points. And I'm like, I was off by one word. It's spot instead of dot. Like, I was so close.
It really reminds me of lining up like in elementary school or something. We're like, line up on your dot, everyone. And it seems like how this ended up coming to be. It's really funny. I think it's a double-edged sword, too, because like I think like you're saying, like, even you kind of stepped off your dot. And I think having people kind of more so crammed kind of encourages you not to move because you kind of remember, like, I can't really go anywhere even if I wanted. So if they do space it out to make the ride, quote unquote, better, what are the odds of a 6, 7, 8-year-old, especially a rambunctious child, staying on their dot?
I mean, they have it like kind of like left, right at angles. So it's really hard to walk forward or move more than the area between you and then the 3 people around you. You're kind of boxed in. So they have it cleverly set up. It's not one single file line. It's 2 lines that are jagged. So, like I said, I think an inch or 2 might do a world of difference just so that you don't accidentally bump someone. But so far, I haven't seen anyone actually get hit or anything. So we'll see.
You ready to get epic? Are we getting epic now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have kind of a bone to pick with you because you've been cheating on me a lot lately. You've been with the other guy on your Park Stop podcast talking about epic. I did my research. I listened to your entire 1 hour. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but Ian and I actually refer to each other as that on Twitter. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Yes, that's a real thing. I think he He's either on Facebook or on Twitter. He wrote me. He's like, "Are you the other guy?" I'm like, "I'm the other guy." And we had like a whole standoff on this. And Ian, I'm sure you probably don't listen to these, but if you do, you're always welcome to come on. I'd love to have you with Alicia anytime. I think that's when the multiverse would officially explode, though. But yeah, no, that's the thing. I am the other guy officially. But I did listen. I loved the last podcast you put out, so I almost wanted to do like a follow up to it. I wanted to ask some questions that came to me from that episode. Kind of separate though. Before we even get into that, does this park almost feel like a sequel to IOA to you at all? And what I mean by that is they have two parks in Orlando. They have Studios, they have IOA, both feeling pretty relatively different in terms of like a park that Universal has created.
It feels like a sequel. Whereas like the first my brain has interconnected Jurassic Park franchises and Universal theme parks because the 90s is when both of those things happened. But it's funny how Universal Studios Florida is Jurassic Park. It tries to be this like flashy, concrete-filled theme park that's for the guests. Islands of Adventure is Lost World. It's this more jungle-like adventure place where you go on your own adventure and it's more immersive. This is, I guess, Jurassic World. Like, we have the Jurassic Park, the Lost World. This is Jurassic World. This is the reboot. This is the technologically advanced holograms in the Discovery Center, brand new spanking. It's not just immersive. Yeah. It's not just concrete, but it's glitzy and glamorous. In fact, just like Jurassic World, there's a theme park attached to a hotel. Like, it's exactly, wow, I didn't think this comparison would pan out this way. It's exactly Jurassic World. And as a new theme park, it's like a mix of everything that was the best of Universal Studios Florida and Islands of Adventure. It's the Diagon Alley effect, where you not just have this beautiful central theme park area that is supposed to be like a theme park, but you also enter into immersive worlds that are like Islands of Adventure, but because they only have one way in and one way out, while you're in there, like Diagon Alley, you are in that world. You're immersed in that property. And then you can go to the hotel at the back of the park and just like chill and go to bed. So it's the next evolution of theme parks for Universal. I think Beijing is already a prototype of this model where they took Universal Studios Florida, literally merged it with Islands of Adventure, and you end up with the loop of Islands of Adventure, the entry area of Universal Studios Florida, and a hotel at the front. So this is like that more than it is like the first two. No,
I totally agree. And I tried to even summarize it myself, and I said, I feel like Islands has this kind of almost unique, like mystical meets Indiana Jones-esque theming and feel, especially like in the, the common areas like port of entry. And it seems to me like Epic has this same kind of like exploratory vibe, but it's more cosmic-y, and it really like relies on like the elements like water, fire, earth, and air. So whereas Islands almost feels like an exploration of Earth specifically because it never really feels like it leaves the planet, like for some reason, Epic feels like an exploration, like still an exploration, but almost like beyond. Like what does the universe look like?
Right, it's the whole Epic universe.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I get. Wow, there it is.
So we're gonna explore different.
It's like now worlds. I get it. I feel like I just connected this the same way you just connected Celestial Park in your podcast. Like exact same thing.
Wait, I guess you could say it's a grouping of fantastic worlds in this universe.
Don't do that.
This Epic universe.
Don't do that. We're beyond that now. We're in a new era. This is the Epic universe.
It's going to be epic. All right. So what are some of the like questions that came to your mind as you were listening? Everyone should go listen, by the way, to the theme park.
No, they should. The
podcast episode 54.
Nice plug, by the way. Even knowing the number offhand, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Guys, Park Stop Podcast, great episode. I'll give her plug as well. But my question was, we know about the lands, we know about the hub, but logistically, something in your podcast that caught my ear was that you and you've talked about this before. You mentioned a scenario where it sounds like the park could actually still be open, but the hub would also be open. You said you would need some sort of like, you need a ticket to the park to still get into the lands. So How does that work? I know you mentioned something about like facial recognition and or facial recognition to get in still to these lands. Like, what does it look like actually like in its like surface? Is it like a Hogwarts Express type thing where you're still gonna have to like go through people and try to like get on it like by that way, or is it like you just walk in and alarms go blaring off because like
yeah, that second one. Yeah, they have a ton of patents for different technologies that they've been tinkering with since they've started designing this park. We're going on 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it's finally culminating and coming together, coalescing, if you will. But the idea was originally that the center of the park would be like a city walk type environment that anyone could come in and like wander around, originally going to be named Celestial Gardens. And if you wanted to go to the theme park lands, you would need a theme park ticket, but you could still enjoy the amenities within the center. And as the plans for the theme park evolved, it became more of a traditional theme park and not so much an open city walk area in the center. However, a little last remnant of the plan still seems to be in place because they are still planning to do the patents for the combined security and turnstiles at the entrance. There will be a little station where you set up your facial recognition to your ticket. So it's essentially you're doing it yourself, like setting up the face recognition for your phone. You'd be setting it up to your ticket, like scan your ticket, look at the little iPad on the wall, and then now you're synchronized. And for the rest of the day, if you go in and out of the park or in and out of areas of the park that might be only accessible by your ticket, you just walk through and it recognizes your face. And because they will have this technology, your express might be connected to your facial recognition. You walk into the express line, now you're automatically in the express line. No one has to check anything or read anything. The line doesn't get backed up.
Yeah.
You just walk on in. If you don't have express and happen to walk into the express line, yes, I believe alarms and sirens will go off and it'd be like, you are in the wrong line, and some security will tackle you, and something to that effect. And then they'll make sure you go into the correct line. And then there is a rumor that they still want to work out some element of this open hub concept, where after a certain time, essentially how parking becomes free for City Walk or the theme parks after 6 p.m. most of the year at the original resort. So that if you want to go to dinner or go watch a movie, it's an incentive to come to City Walk, even if you're not going to a theme park, because the parking fee is mostly for the theme park. This would be like that. You're not going to be coming to a theme park in the last 2 hours and really get much out of it. So parking becomes free, but so does the hub. And the idea that you can come and dine at one of the 3 fine dining establishments in the hub, or some of the quick service offerings, of which there will be a lot of kiosks and a lot of smaller things and a lot of street entertainment and maybe fireworks at the end of the night. So there's incentive to come just to hang out and enjoy Celestial Park, the central park area of Epic Universe. But to pull it off, they have to close off the theme park areas. And since they're all like Diagon Alley, they all have one entry point and exit point. So if you want to go into a theme park area and your face recognition isn't in the system, then security will come and be like, oh, I'm sorry, you need a ticket to come into this area. And if you do have a ticket to go into the theme park area, you can come and go as you please, just like it's normal, like you did all day. It's just now they actually limit it to only the people with the tickets.
That seems kind of rough, though. Because even when I think about entering Diagon Alley, when it's busy, I'm usually entering the land with 20, 30 other people side by side with me.
Well, imagine the Diagon Alley entrance, or even the Super Nintendo World Pipe entrance, but twice as wide. These are purposely bigger. And also they have a separate exit that is exit only. Diagon does too, but no one pays attention to it. But there is separate exits off to the side. So, and they've even started building it. They have little security booths at the exit to all of the lands to make sure no one's coming in the exit. Because unlike Diagon, you can't come in the exit here. You have to go through the main portal. So they will have security to make sure that happens. Because at a certain point of the day, they might allow anyone into the hub to enjoy dinner or fireworks. And then it includes the 2 rides, because there's the roller coaster and the carousel. I believe they have their own version of little facial recognition portals at the entrance to those rides. So you'll be going through metal detectors for the roller coaster that also is a facial recognition portal.
Wow.
It's very sneaky.
So if you really want to get in, you put on a mustache and glasses and look down and you do your best, or is that just no shot?
I mean, no shot. If it doesn't recognize you, it's not going to let you in.
Yeah.
And if you're not on file, and is it
an opt-in for everyone then? Like, is everyone going to have to be a part of that? Because I know you mentioned it wouldn't be. So how does that work?
Well, just like now, if you don't want to use your fingerprint to get into a theme park, they put a little note on your account, and it's just that you show your ID.
Yeah.
You scan your barcode on your pass, and then you show your ID. And if your ID face matches your face, then they let you in. The same thing would be true with the facial recognition. There will be essentially like when you do mobile order at a restaurant, and there's always that one register that's still open just in case someone wants to pay with cash. If there will be the one scanner person over in the corner who's going to scan you at a portal after 6 p.m. if you are opting out of facial recognition. But it is just ones and zeros. They're not like saving photos or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a scan of biometrics. So it's not, and I believe in the patent anyway, it actually deletes the information as you leave the park or at the end of the day. So it's a daily thing that remembers it. And I don't know if that's for just regular tickets, like maybe annual passes can like keep it logged on, or maybe your face looks different day to day, depending on mustache growth or makeup or something. So maybe you have to re-enter it every day. But the point is that like City Walk now, if the park's closed early or if you wanted a fancier dinner, you could just walk out to City Walk. And this is a situation where even if the land's closed earlier, you would keep the center part of the park open later. So we might not have fireworks till 10 p.m., 11 p.m. And even if like Super Nintendo World and Wizarding World and everything closed at 7 or 8 p.m. and then you're like just all huddled into the hub and you can eat and dine and enjoy the street entertainment until it's time for fireworks.
I'm sure once I see it, it's going to be a very straightforward and probably easy process. But right now, thinking about this kind of stuff is just mind-blowing, and I can't imagine how it's going to be actually facilitated and how they're going to keep track of this kind of stuff. But again, it's one of those things I think once I see it happens in person, I'm going to be like, oh, that's how it's easy enough. But it's right now, it seems like I just can't imagine if 100, 200 people are all shuffling in at the same time, how they're going to be like, you, sir, in the middle of the circle, like, I need to speak with you.
Well, yeah, we'll see how it happens, how it goes in practice. But I think part of it also is that I don't think they'd be promoting it big time to start. They still have plans to add 2 or 3 more restaurants to the hub, and they need to up the capacity before they can really like allow anyone to come in. So this might be something that's really promoted to the hotel guests at first. Like, hey, you're staying at the hotel at the back of the park. Even if you don't have a theme park ticket for this day, you can come still have dinner after 6. Like, it might just be, you kind of tell people who are nearby, maybe convention goers, hey, we have, dinner available tonight. Maybe you don't go all in on just advertising it to everyone because there's not the capacity. But they do plan to add another restaurant or 2 the following year, 2026, maybe another one, 2027, keep going. And as they need capacity and as more people realize or locals start visiting and after 6 p.m., who knows? It might happen. But also they have to test facial recognition as tickets. So all of 2024 at Universal Orlando Resort, Universal Studios Florida, at Islands of Adventure, they're going to start testing this as an option to enter instead of waiting in line to do your fingerprint, and you could just walk into the park. And if those tests go well, it's just one more thing they can check off the list before they realize, oh, we can do this. So there's a lot of factors that have to like all line up. Do we have the capacity for it? Does facial recognition work? Does it hold up the line? Is the technology ready yet? So it might be something that doesn't even happen in 2025 because it's a new park. It might be 2026 when the new restaurants open. We don't know yet.
Well, I think we're going to get those answers sooner than later. Just like you mentioned, if we're going to see this technology already being tested at the current resort, that's going to be exciting to see. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of immediate feedback from everyone. The second we start seeing this stuff, there's going to be a lot of, just general reception. So I'm curious to see how that goes. But I think that was a good segue because my next question, or at least one of them, was talking about this phase 2 in 2026. You briefly mentioned it in your show. You mentioned things like the currently, I guess, just delayed, I wouldn't say scrapped, the food court. And you also mentioned the Potter gift shop, which is immediately outside the, Wizarding World area, I guess right outside their portal. Was there anything else particularly saved for that 2026 phase 2 that you may have did not mention, or just anything that you like are thinking about now?
Well, when it comes to Zephyr Market, the food court near the front of the park, that's definitely going to, like, I think that one specifically was held off because it's a play wait and see to see if they even need another quick service or if they'd rather use that space for something else, whether it be an attraction or another fancy restaurant or something, or a different kind of restaurant. So that's more of a, like, do we really need this when we have 12 different quick service kiosks and stands and purpose-built spaces? Like, they were going to do Meteor Burger too, which was a burger place. And I think, one of them got turned into a food marketplace, which is like an outdoor seating area with little kiosks and stuff. And don't picture in your mind like a cart that can be moved around. I'm talking like the crepe stand at Central Park at Universal Studios Florida, where it's good food. Yeah. And people go to that to have good food. And they've just started doing that at Universal Studios Florida and Islands lately, where they've taken their like temporary carts and turned them into permanent like purpose-built things. So more things like that. But yeah, I think what we could see maybe as early as 2026 is something at Potter to replace the canceled VR, or at least part of the canceled VR. Like, they have enough expansion back there for two things, because there was already expansion besides the VR building. So now they have double expansion back there.
Yeah.
And I can see something smallish opening as like, hey, come back to Epic Universe. We've already got something new at Wizarding World.
That would be a nice little quick addition. I think something that would make sense, especially just to start building out that particular world. I know we briefly mentioned, I guess, rumblings for a Waterworld area, and I'm calling it an area because I don't believe it's a land. It's an area. I think that's the more proper wording for what they built the first time around. Going in between Nintendo and Monsters and that plot. Yeah. Is there any rumbling there that could potentially make it that quick, or probably not? I
think the thinking was, we had a stunt show that was going to Universal Monsters area, and that stunt show was canceled for a roller coaster. So where could we put a stunt show? And someone in their infinite wisdom is like, people love Waterworld, and Beijing just got a Waterworld land. And I'm like, on paper, it's a land, but is it really a land? What is it, like a gift shop, a food kiosk, and the show? Like, that's not a... I mean, Skull Island, Reign of Kong is a land too, so what are we gonna... I think that won't happen, despite it keeps showing up in rumors. I don't think that will happen. I think they know now that there's more value in that real estate in being for Nintendo. I think that we would see, and I don't know if it would be Pokemon, which is like Nintendo adjacent, or if it would actually be a connected section of Super Nintendo World that doubles the land.
Wow.
I would hope for the latter, and that Pokemon goes somewhere else, honestly.
How would you feel about a best of Nintendo IP expansion, like where almost like what they initially planned for Kid Zone kind of feel?
Yeah, I think, Super Nintendo World now already has Yoshi and Mario Kart and the original Super Mario Brothers as the interactive features, and now Donkey Kong Country. I think Luigi's Mansion, Kirby's Dream Land, like different things could be adjacent to it and still work. Anything essentially that shows up in Super Smash Bros. Is on the table in my mind.
Well, think about Luigi's Mansion right next to Monsters too.
I think that... But like with an entrance, you could probably still do the main entrance to Super Nintendo World and just build off where they have an exit now, builds off to a new warp pipe to another world. So you could do a Luigi's Mansion and take up half of the expansion for that, and then do another one with another pipe to another expansion. So there's possibilities there without having to make a whole new land to the hub. But also, if you did Pokemon, you could do a whole new land to the hub, and then Nintendo and Pokemon get to live next to each other. Either way, I'm putting my money down. It's not Waterworld.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be foolish to make that Waterworld. I mean, seeing what Super Nintendo World has done to my home park here in Hollywood, it's not even the full rendition of the world, and just to see the impact it's had, basically every day seems to be sold out. Going to the park, when you step in that world, it doesn't even feel like my park. It doesn't feel like I'm in Hollywood. It feels like I'm somewhere completely else. Gosh, I almost have chills right now thinking about Epic getting all of that and then getting a significant expansion as well. It seems like I just don't see how you don't do that.
There is one other expansion that I didn't mention on my podcast, which is there's a little area of hub expansion to the other side of Super Nintendo World, in between Super Nintendo World and the entry to the park. And I think that was originally envisioned as a stage show type, theater type soundstage building, so that they could, and it was specifically on that location so that you could have it, like if you wanted to do Broadway shows after 6 p.m., people would be allowed into the hub for free and go buy a ticket to this special, like a Blue Man Group type building. And so then you could do Wicked at your new Celestial Park venue, Celestial Park Theater, if you will. And I think that is something that would add value to having an open hub where guests of the park could buy a theme park ticket plus dinner plus theater show ticket, like an add-on. Like you could get a vacation package that includes a Broadway show ticket. And at the end of your day, being in the theme park, just walk right into this theater. Without having to like go to a separate location. But also because it's a multi-use like black box building, it could be for special events, for holidays and things. You could do like a kid-friendly Halloween event, and this is a venue for a kid-friendly Halloween show that's part of all day at the theme park. You could do an after hours Halloween thing where you do trick or treating, and this is the venue that like is the main hub near the entrance for the Halloween event. Like there's so many different things you could do just by building a soundstage here. And also there are plans for 2 parade buildings, one on the left side of the park, one on the right side of the park. And when I announced that to social media followers and patrons last month, they were all like, why would you need 2? And I'm like, because one is for their regular parade all year, and one is for special holiday parades. So, there's an opportunity for this park to not only grow with new attractions, but grow with new entertainment offerings as well. And they've already built it into the plan.
That's special. So that area of expansion in between the entrance and Nintendo, that wouldn't necessarily, in your eyes, ever go to something like Waterworld, or would it? If it could. No,
okay. It has enough room for the Secret Life of Pets area. Okay. Like it has enough room for a Minion cafe and a ride. Yeah. But I think a giant purpose-built black box building that can be anything it wants to be, but mostly is probably going to be a theater like Blue Man Group, is what the plan is currently.
And if it's Blue Man Group, you're saying not a show that would run throughout your normal day, almost like an after hours thing, or?
That's an opportunity. Yeah. See, depending on the time of year, it might be both. It might be a new show that's just for a special event, like Mardi Gras is part of the day ticket. Halloween Horror Nights is part of the night ticket. This building could be for either of those types of events.
I whispered going to get that Back to the Future Broadway show, but I'm almost wondering if putting something like Cursed Child would make sense in there.
Right. There's an opportunity to do things like that are related to this park. And not have to like recycle the How to Train Your Dragon Theater or something if they needed to do a holiday overlay show.
Very interesting. No, that's cool. Man, I guess not, even lingering too much here because I know we're already moving right along. We're over 36 minutes into this podcast. Express is another thing that you mentioned in your podcast as something that wouldn't necessarily be available on the day the park opens, but you also mentioned kind of a return style lightning lane-esque system. Is that what it would open with, or would it not even open with that?
I think like Super Nintendo World, there's so much demand for certain areas and attractions that it's almost impossible to open something like this without having some kind of backup plan for virtual line. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a permanent solution, but if they have the infrastructure in place, as they are updating the Universal Orlando app currently to have virtual line be more integrated into the system, then there's an opportunity when Epic Universe opens. They're like, oh, well, the Mario Kart ride is filling up like way too fast. The queue is all the way out into the hub. Like we have some issues here. then they're like, initiate the virtual line backup plan.
I see.
So
I see.
there, you could walk into the park at opening and pick your time to enter certain rides, the way that Japan had to do for a year, I think, for Super Nintendo World. But maybe in this case for the whole park. Like it depends on how they open and like what they decide. Like, well, this is way busier than we expected, or this doesn't have the queue space. Then they can turn on a toggle for every different attraction in every land, a virtual line reservation system.
Yeah, so I was wondering if you're seeing it as something that, you know, day one, gates open, it's just ready, or if it's like a needed basis, like, hey, that attraction's getting out of hand, like turn it on for that.
Right,
one.
exactly. I think it's going to be essentially like they're not planning to use it for everything, but they can. And it's a much more broad system. Like when I first went to Hogsmeade, I went to not the first day grand opening in Islands Adventure, but I went to like the third day and the fifth day. They were handing out pieces of paper with a return time to everyone in line. The first day we just waited in line, and I waited like 7 hours in a line that reached all the way around Islands of Adventure to it backed up to the other side of Hogsmeade. It was so long. And then when I went on day 5, they're handing out these little pieces of paper that essentially printed out little like fast pass return times, and they handed it to everyone because this was essentially pre-app days. And now that we have the app system, like I think they're just prepared to like, you know, you enter the park and it gives you a little alert, or there's a sign. It's like Super Nintendo World is by virtual line entry only, and it might be that way for a while.
So it's really not anything different that we've ever seen. It's just all digital now.
Yeah, I think it's just better organized.
Yeah.
Not like fly by the seat of your pants. Like they're prepared to be ready for it. In the interim, we may see this technology be used at the existing theme parks to sell a la carte express passes. And I think that was what I kind of wanted to touch on my show, is I think it's interesting that a technology that they know they might need might get utilized and tested through paid things. And not necessarily because they're trying to make tons of money, but because they have the technology and they kind of need to test it somehow. So we might see a third tier of express instead of like one-time use, unlimited, at the existing theme parks itself, leading up to this. Just like they're going to test facial recognition so they're ready when the park opens, they might test individual lightning lanes, if you will, individual express passes, which may only be tested like here and there randomly. I don't think necessarily it would be a permanent thing, but maybe it'll be a test to see if this is ready for prime time.
I know this is already like going to be ridiculous, just the crowd, and it's probably a bad example, but I was also wondering if because it's expected to open without express, which by the way, guys, is a good thing because you're probably going to want to see these fully fleshed out queues, especially if you're listening to this, you're probably a theme park purist, I would argue, and you should want to see these queues. So opening without express isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I was going to say, we could finally see the answer to the age-old question that everyone always tries to say, like, oh, I think express passes and lightning lane, this, that, and the other actually ruins the experience for like, you know, the general admission, and like it messes up the lines even more than just having a normal line. Now we're gonna have just a normal line, so here's your answer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depending on the virtual line, because of overflow, which might affect it. But I think we had a pretty good test of that during pandemic reopenings at especially Walt Disney World, because the Genie Express doesn't sell out every day. Not everyone can afford or wants to or is even needed to buy that much Express. But Genie is very, like, a lot of families just assume, well, the only way I'm gonna have a good day is if I buy Genie Plus. So being able to see what the Disney parks were like just standby was very interesting. It was essentially, to me, the lines always were moving. And now that Lightning Lane and Genie Plus started, I notice a lot more stop, start. And that's because you have to do this like 50-50, 60-40, 90-10 split between the fast pass line and the standby line. Like if the Lightning Lane line is too long, they do a 90-10 split, like 9 out of 10 people from the fast pass line and then one person from standby. And because of that, there's a lot more standing in the heat and a lot more standing in place. Yeah. And the lines feel like they take longer. Even if the queues aren't that much longer, they feel longer because you're stopping so much. And I miss that brief moment when everyone was more equalized.
Yeah.
And you're just like, we all wait in line and we all just keep moving. The line moves so fast. Those were the days.
Those were the days. They weren't the days, but they were also the days.
No, it was terrifying. It was horrifying. I was scared. I'd never want to go back. But
yeah,
the lines were
moving lines.
Moving lines.
Yeah. You also seem to mention in your podcast that one of the restaurants in the hub, the Atlantic, which is what's the shape? Octagonical? Is that
octagon? It's a stop sign.
Yeah, it's a stop sign. Yeah. One of the things I really like about it is the floor-to-ceiling windows that look out into the water features. I think it's going to be a beautiful restaurant. It has that water theme as well, which I think I always get excited about just because of our brand, Theme Park Shark. I always get excited about anything water.
That's right.
But you also mentioned in your podcast that you think it might be on the pricier end. I know you made like a brief mention just saying like, hey, this thing's going to be pretty pricey. How pricey? Like, well, I guess that's like something we've never seen or just on the higher end.
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
I think there are some pricier restaurants at Universal Orlando, but they're mostly at the resorts. Like even the City Walk ones, while some are more expensive than the in-park ones, there's not that much of a difference between something like Mythos and what are some of the like NBC Sports Grill? What's the Italian one? Yeah, Vivo. There's not much difference. They're all kind of the same tier of full service. Oh yeah, Big Fire's a little bit on the pricier end. I think Big Fire is a good comparison to something like Atlantic. But there's also Blue Dragon is the rumored name for the Asian style restaurant at the back. I think the interior of something like that might be like so beautiful if it sticks to the early rumors that maybe that one will be the priciest. It also may come down to like what has the least seating might be the priciest. So Atlantic is definitely on the least seating level. And then the newly renamed Oak and Star Tavern. I think that one's probably going to be more of what we're used to, like a Confisco's level quick service price. I don't mean full service pricing. So there may be like, this one is normal full service pricing. This one's a little bit more than we're used to, maybe like a Big Fire. And then that one's going to be more. But they also have the restaurants at the hotel at the back of the park. And maybe one of those is really fancy. Like what's the fancy restaurant? There's a fancy restaurant at not Royal Pacific, at Portofino that I think it's an Italian place that I went for the breakfast buffet, but I haven't actually been for lunch and dinner, but it's a little on the pricier end. So, maybe we see that at the hotel at the back of the park because this is their fanciest hotel. But still, none of it would compare to something like the most expensive restaurants at Walt Disney World. Because there is some
that's what I was wondering.
Former Michelin star restaurants over at Grand Floridian, for example. I don't think we're going to reach that kind of pricing levels.
Yeah, I was like, are they actually trying to go like full service, top tier steakhouse type deal? Or like what are they trying to do with
I think we're talking like $40-$50 a dinner max.
Okay, I mean that's still significant. That's a good price.
For Universal, that's a little high, but these are just my instinctual guessings.
I mean, that sounds higher than Mythos, wouldn't you say?
Well, yeah, I think it's closer to Big Fire depending on what you order, because there's certain things at Big Fire that are like $50, and I think and they're worth it. Big Fire is good.
Sure.
So I think it's more like that. Okay. But that's why they have multiple. That's why they have, and then they're going to build more, and maybe they'll realize, well, we're outpricing some people, so maybe we'll build the lower end ones for the expansions, and instead of a food court type Zephyr Market, maybe we get a higher capacity like a NBC Sports Grill and Brew full service. Maybe we get something like that.
I think that question really, interested me because I know that the hub is almost going to serve as a pseudo City Walk if it has that open, plan once the park gets open. So I'm like, okay, if that's the case and it's a pseudo City Walk, do the restaurants inside the park themselves now become, do they try to do some more top tier ones and make it City Walk related, or how does that work? So, I mean, it sounds like we're gonna have a mixture kind of everything at the end of the day.
Yeah, and to start anyway, I think a lot of the quick service locations are smaller outdoor market type stuff for now, but there is at least the one pizza quick service restaurant in the hub that still got built.
I have kind of a under discussed area of this park. I mean, at least I think it's under discussed. If you've discussed it quite a few on yours, you can let me know, but I know we definitely haven't. And that's talking character interactions. Like Hollywood has Donkey. We have the Transformers and Snowball and New Yorkers in the window, and the list kind of goes on here in Hollywood. I I think at Epic, Mario and Luigi are obvious ones, but those aren't true, like actual actors talking kind of thing. Yeah. Do you have any like early wishes or guesses, like who could fill that kind of role here at Epic, or if they would even do that?
I know we'll have some face characters for How to Train Your Dragon, because the actors on the stage show will then meet guests at the stables outside. So you'll have Hiccup and his friends meeting with guests along with the giant puppets for the dragons. And the dragons will always be there meeting and greeting, but it'll be interesting if they use the same stage actors immediately following the show to go then meet and get photos with the guests. So maybe only once an hour do you see humans, but those will be people that you can talk to. And that's almost more of a Disney type thing than it is a Universal thing. It's very rare. We got like Doc Brown, we got the night bus train conductor, like bus conductor. Like there's not too many. There is the train conductor over at Hogsmeade. There's not too many human characters. They're usually puppets or transformers or raptors or a mystical fountain.
Yeah, Mr. Fountain's another example.
So there are about other talking characters, because there's like definitely an opportunity for a lot of creatures at the Wizarding World, and there's definitely an opportunity for monsters. And if it's anything like, Universal Studios Hollywood, monsters do talk. So, there'll be more talking characters that we might see over at, I don't know if Wolfman's going to talk or just like bark, but there, you do see Frankenstein say a few words here and there. Dracula's very talkative. So,
yeah. Yeah, I wonder if, because we have those characters on the daily in Hollywood. So I'm almost wondering if this is going to be your guys' chance to finally have those characters on a more consistent basis, like, right.
And I wonder what if they will be newly designed to match the rides, because the rides are more like very gritty, realistic versions of the monsters, modern takes on the monsters. Not necessarily the Halloween Horror Nights ones where they're gruesome, but not all the way to the 1920s and 30s version where they're black and white. Like it's somewhere in between. So I'm curious to see if they update the costumes for our characters.
I wouldn't mind some custom characters too, kind of like we've seen at IOA and Port of Entry. And I'm curious what the explorers of Epic Universe would look like if there is such a thing.
That's a good one. I could see, instead of the adventurer look with the safari hats and stuff, or the piratey people at the Port of Entry, maybe we get some futuristic Jules Verne, timeless, space travel-y people from the past and future that never was. That would be
How do you think that would look? Almost like a twosome vibe, or
less steampunk and more well-dressed. Like I think of World's Fair in like Paris in like 200 years ago, where like everything was fancy, but not necessarily futuristic, but they thought it was futuristic. Not steampunk, though. I bet you anything they're going to steer as far as they can close to steampunk without hitting steampunk.
Yeah, that seems right. Speed round, because we are getting pretty late. I'm going to go super quick because we got a lot of questions that were submitted on Instagram and Twitter, and I think Threads as well. But Eric is my name on Instagram asked if Super Nintendo World in Orlando will be larger than Japan.
Technically, it is. It's you'll feel less cramped in the courtyard and the upper walkway, but most of this extra space is being given to team member areas and break areas and an extra bathroom. And there's something under Peach's Castle, and I have no idea what it is. It might be for meet and greet space, which would really open up the courtyard. And
I think that kind of answers the next question as well. Anthony asked, what new things would Super Nintendo World have in Orlando compared to all the others? And I know there's that thing under the castle that we keep kind of wondering what it is. Is that the new thing, if anything?
I guess. There might also be an extra interactive thing that we don't know about.
Got it. Jude,
like an extra game.
Jude asked us to speculate on areas of expansion. I know we've basically already done that in this podcast, so I don't think we have to worry so much about the left side, but maybe the side Wizarding World and Dragons. Is there any speculation you want there, or not even at this point?
Well, we used to talk about Creature from the Black Lagoon boat ride for monsters, and I hope that it's still on the table, but I haven't heard a peep about it in years. So there is still that large expansion. As a matter of fact, every land has an expansion plot except Nintendo, which has the whole land next to it. So it's possible that Like if I was going to fill out the park, I would put a simulator ride in How to Train Your Dragon. There's enough room for it. I would put a indoor-outdoor roller coaster over featuring Fantastic Beasts over in France at Wizarding World. And I would put the boat ride for Creature from the Black Lagoon, and I would double the size of Super Nintendo World. That's what I would do. There's room for it all. We'll see what they do,
what about that in between? Is there, are you saying you would put something like for Dragon? Like what would you put? I don't know if you answered it already, but that plot in between Dragons and Potter.
Oh, the giant plot? Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Lord of the Rings. You're set on that?
I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think... I feel like Universal can do it if they want to do it, but it's a matter of how do we do it. So we'll see.
I won't speculate on it. I'll just tell you what I want, and you and I have already talked about this. I want the Universal's legacy world, put all of Universal's great attractions there. Give me.
That's
it's
not
going to happen, but it's what I want.
Yeah, we might see something to that effect temporarily as an event or something, but we're not like they're going to sell us nostalgia like Disney does without building the rides again.
I mean, gosh, like I could go on about that forever, so I won't. But Tunes 100 asked if we think it'll be both bigger, and this is subjective, better than the current parks. Is it bigger?
And technically, it is bigger than Islands of Adventure, but not by much. It's because it doesn't have the giant lagoon in the center. It has smaller lagoons. So it's very similar to Islands of Adventure, but with the expansion, if they filled in both expansion plots, it would be bigger than Islands of Adventure. So in the future, it
Christopher asked us if we think they'll do anything special for current pass holders in terms of a preview or just any perks at all.
Yes.
Okay, that's a straightforward answer. That's cool. Robert asked us, what are they going to do to keep the current parks relevant after Epic opens? My answer is that Epic does that in general because people come for Epic and they'll visit the other parks, but I'll let you give your take.
The Minion Blast and the DreamWorks area for Kid Zone is a temporary holdover so that Studios has something new. Zelda will be opening at Islands of Adventure a year or two after Epic Universe, and then expect something new and big to come to Universal Studios after that.
And our final question to close out this, what ended up being a pretty darn big podcast, where are you thinking the preview center is going to be?
Where the Legacy store is at Universal City Walk now.
Straightforward. Alicia, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure as always.
Always fun to talk about this stuff. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. If you guys want to catch more of Alicia Stella, she has the Theme Park Stop on YouTube. She has the Park Stop podcast as well. And she is Alicia Stella on Twitter. If you guys are looking for more from the Theme Park Shark, you can find our podcast on Apple and Spotify. We are at themeparkshark.com. And, of course, the Theme Park Shark on YouTube. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode of Shark Stop. As always, I appreciate you guys being here and for listening and or watching. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Have a great day. And we'll see you guys in the next one.